That reading this morning is interesting to me because it doesn't read like my Bible, and both they say it's ESV. Like, what are you reading? In the real version of the Bible, it says, "I am the door." Forget the gate. I don't know where that came from. So we gotta research that one. I don't know if ESV made an update that I wasn't aware of, and they got it on digital, but not in print. I mean, I've got a fairly new Bible, so I'm a little surprised by it. So here's the deal. This morning we're going to talk about, I'm the door of the sheep. I am the good shepherd. It is interesting to me that when we read these words, I would think that the first thought that we would have when Jesus says, "I am the door of the sheepfold, and I am the good shepherd." Those words, to me, should be the greatest comfort that we could ever think of. I mean, how amazing when you know all of the things that the Lord has said about shepherds in the Old Testament. When you read Psalm 23, as we sang this morning, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." You see all of those things, and then the Lord comes to the earth and announces, "I am the good shepherd, and I'm the door to the sheepfold." That's just such comfort in that, such wonder in that. We have something that is completely special here, and we need to appreciate the speciality of it. However, given the context, there's something else that is there also. Jesus is not only giving us something that is beautiful and comforting and wonderful, he is also preaching and revealing condemnation. I'm the door of the sheep. There's only one way in. And it is really interesting in the context of what is going on in this particular passage. When Jesus uses the word, "I am the door of the sheep," you know well enough that this is one of 7 times that Jesus refers to himself as God. I am Yahweh. He's come to the earth. I am the way and the truth and the life. And he's mentioned that many times. And John starts his gospel with referring to Jesus as the Word. The Word is the one who is revealing God. And so when he comes and he begins with these words in chapter 10, he is telling us, this is Yahweh, and he is the one who is the true deliverer, and he is the one who shepherds you, and he is the one who brings you into safety. He's revealing every bit of the beauty of God. There are 3 things that we should think of immediately as we see Jesus saying these words. The first is, we are sheep. I don't know how many of you hang out with sheep. Probably not a lot. But most of you know what it means to be sheep. We are sheep. We don't think of ourselves that way. We don't accept it that way. Our lives indicate that we do not often accept this. Sheep are vulnerable. Sheep are the weakest animal on the farm. Sheep cannot protect themselves. You don't run around seeing wild sheep on the countryside taking care of themselves. They would be consumed in no time. We are those, as Jesus refers to in chapter 9, we can easily be those who think we see, but we're blind. We want to think that we're not sheep. We want to think that we're not vulnerable. We want to think that we're not weak. We want to think that somehow we can protect ourselves, and we can do none of those things. Most of the world does not understand the true identity that God is giving us so that we can completely recognize our need for Him and our dependency on Him. Secondly, without a shepherd, we have no wisdom, we have no direction, we have no way of knowing how to get good food, good water, be able to survive without being diseased and starve. Sheep gone astray will starve to death. Sheep gone astray will get diseased. Sheep gone astray will get consumed by a wild animal. It's as simple as that. Do we recognize that? And thirdly, there's a choice between shepherds, and we need to choose. The Pharisees and the Jews had chosen not to take the good shepherd. The blind man who was healed chose the good shepherd and left the hirelings and thieves and robbers who were trying to lead them. That's the connection in the text. It's a beautiful connection. I want you to very quickly see the movement through the text, because this is very difficult if you just look at one particular part. For one thing, we began in chapter 5 of John, where Jesus healed an invalid who had been an invalid for 38 years. 38 years only represented one thing in the Scriptures. It was the years of bondage that Israel wandered through the wilderness. And He released this man of 38 years, giving an indication of what He had come to do. In chapter 6 of John, we see Jesus presenting Himself following that in a perfect way. He says, He showed Himself as the new Moses, leading a new Exodus with a new bread, a bread of life that they could actually live forever with. In chapter 7, He announces at the tabernacle feast, when the priests were pouring out water and crying to God for living water, He said, if any man thirst, let him come to me and drink, and out of his innermost being will flow rivers of living water. He is claiming to be the one who provides the good bread and the good water. He's leading up to Him talking about Himself as the good shepherd. In chapter 8, He says, I am the light of the world. He's showing them that I know how to take you where you need to be. I am the light of the world. And then He proves it in chapter 9 by healing a man that was born blind, something that had never been done in all of history. Healing a man who was born blind. And in the end, the spiritual blindness of that man was taken away, and he was able to see, not only physically but spiritually. And then at the end of chapter 9, as He's ready to transition into chapter 10, He says a most unique and often misunderstood word. In verse 39, He says, for judgment I came into this world. He didn't say to judge I came into the world. He says for judgment I came into the world. I came into the world in order to shine a light to see who would choose to see it, who would choose to follow it, who would choose to take and come to the Good Shepherd, and who would leave and go after hirelings and thieves. That's what He transitions with. And so when you read that from chapter 9, look at the words, chapter 9, verse 40, some of the Pharisees near Him heard these things and said to Him, are we also blind? Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say, we see, your guilt remains. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door of the door is the shepherd of the sheep, and to him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls out his own sheep by name and leads them out. You see the transition. As often, don't allow your eyes and your mind to stop and change subjects because there's a chapter division. The letter wasn't written in chapters and verses. See the connection. He's still talking to these Pharisees who claim they see when they are blind. And if they understood they were blind, Jesus said, then you would be able to see, because you'd come to me, the light, in order to see. It's a beautiful transition, and then it changes how we read this particular text. This is a direct affront to the Pharisees and what they are thinking and what they are believing. There is a metaphor that is used here, two metaphors as a matter of fact. You noticed when the scripture was read, when you got to verse 6, the scripture says that they did not understand what he was saying to them, and so he changes the metaphor and gives another. Here is the picture that is being given when he says that you have to enter the sheepfold by the door, and then secondly, I'm the door of the sheep. There's two different metaphors. In the first metaphor, he is speaking about a communal sheepfold that was typically in the city, not in the country. Typically in the city was communal in that it was very, very large, and there would be a gatekeeper who would stand there, and he would only allow true shepherds to come in. He knew the shepherds. He knew that they had their flock in there, and only the true shepherd was allowed to come through, and the gatekeeper would allow him in. When he went in, he would call his sheep. One of the most unique and interesting things about this animal that we would normally say is a dumb animal, and yet in many ways that is the smartest animal you could ever think of, and it's just amazing. They would go in this big old flock and they would start doing a yip, 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 a particular way of calling his own sheep, and only his sheep would come out of this great flock and follow him out. And he would lead them. He didn't have to turn around and go, anybody coming? They're going with the shepherd because they know the shepherd is going to provide for them. This is the first picture that he gives here. He's speaking then of how one would enter a sheepfold. You enter because you're the good shepherd. Jesus has entered the sheepfold as he came to Israel. And he's calling out his sheep. That's very significant. We'll see how that fits with us a little bit later. But then there is a second metaphor that is used here when Jesus turns around and then says, when he tries to explain to them, he says in verse 7, I am the door to the sheep. Now he changes the metaphor to a sheepfold that is out in the country. He has taken his sheep out into the hills in the country to find good pasture. And when nightfall comes, he sets up a perimeter, a big box, rectangle, no door. First thing you'd think is, why didn't you put a door there? Oh no, no door. The shepherd himself lays down and sleeps where the opening is, so that anything that would enter would have to go through him, and anything that would exit would have to go through him. There is the only way. The shepherd now is here to lay his life down to protect his sheep. He will not allow anything to come near them. You remember when David said he killed a lion and a bear? David was risking his own life in a messianic picture of how Jesus would do the same for us. He would protect us from anything that can destroy us. It's an absolute beautiful picture. And so in the open field, no one could come. But if you were a hireling, as he talks about later in the text, if you were just somebody hired to do this, you would flee when you saw the lion, the bear, the wolves, or whatever. You would let the sheep go just to protect your own life. But Jesus would not. He places himself squarely in contrast then to these leaders. These leaders were nothing but hirelings and thieves and robbers. And he presents that way. Imagine how strong that would have been, especially as the man born blind who is healed, who had made this big switch from the false sheepfold to the sheepfold of Jesus, how he would have realized this is fantastic. Look at this shepherd. Look how strong he is. Look what he is doing. He had been cast out of one sheepfold and was allowed to enter another. Now consider this. What is the primary message of the text? What should we actually concentrate on in this text? When we make a connection between chapter 9 and 10, it allows us to see then Jesus' message more clearly. And so the picture is, first and foremost, at the end of chapter 9, when we think we see, we're as blind as a person, as a lamb that decides it can go on its own. A lamb who's determined to follow its own thoughts and ways and explore other ways. We are exactly like that when we think we see. Because the idea is when we think we see, we think we've got it. I can take care of myself. I can follow my ways and my thoughts. I can be my own shepherd and my own God. And the result is you're going to die. How often that happens? There's only one sheepfold. There's only one door. There's only one shepherd. Everything else is death. Everything else is death. When you or I get involved in something that is apart from God's Word, it doesn't have to be a bunch of things. We can sit here and say, oh yeah, I'm a pretty religious person. I love God. He's great and everything, but I've got this little part of me that God can't have everything of me. The sheep has gone astray. You think you see, but you're blind. And the end result is absolute destruction. I'm always amazed when Christians begin to slip. And it starts that way, just a little slippage. And then pretty soon there's no full trust in God. It always blows my mind. I just have a simple question anytime that happens, and I've had that question I've asked myself. Where in the world do you think you're going? Where do you think you're going without the shepherd? Wake up. There is no life anyplace else. I love the words of Peter when Jesus asked Peter in John 6, do you want to go away too? And Peter said, Lord, where would we go? You have the words of eternal life. We need to scope back out of things that tempt us and out of things that begin to grab us. We need to scope back and say, where do you think you're going? You are leaving the good shepherd. And that is exactly what he's telling the leadership of the Jews and the whole Jewish nation. You have far left the good shepherd. And I've come back to try to help gather you. And they would not listen. When you look at this, please ask yourself, what happened to these leaders? What happened to Israel? What happened to the nation? In 37 years after this text, Jesus came on a mighty cloud and utterly destroyed them. Where are these leaders now? Where is your temple now? Where is your synagogue now? Where is your ways now? Where is your shepherd now? No, they're all gone. Every time God judges from Babylon throughout the Old Testament, He's always a reminder. Don't be like them. Turn to the only one that can protect you, feed you, care for you, give you life. The only one who really cares in the very end. Look at the message. The message for us. Sheep hear His voice. That's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. But only hearing the shepherd is what makes sheep unique. It is the one thing through this whole thing. Jesus has started with your sheep. Let's face it, you can't make it without me. Now here's the answer. My sheep hear my voice. My sheep hear my voice. They don't ignore it. They follow me. And those who do not hear my voice are not my sheep. Now that's pretty straightforward, and all I've got to do is look at myself and say, which is it? You going to listen to him even in things that you don't really want to do? Are you going to listen to him when he goes that way and you'd rather go that way? Is this what you're going to do? Here's what we did do. Here's the shepherd we did follow. Paul refers to it in Ephesians 2:2. He said, we followed the course of this world, the prince of the power of the air. There's the second choice for a shepherd. So this just struck me so strongly. Choose that sin, even singular. Choose it. And you made the prince of the power of the air your shepherd. Oh, do I want to? You want to admit that? No. Jesus is the good shepherd. What a contrast. Every time, when we've done Jeremiah, every time the Lord, and Isaiah does the same thing, he contrasts himself with the devil. Sometimes it's the nation, sometimes it's the idols, but all of that comes from the devil. He's contrasting shepherds. Look what I do. Look what he does. He murders you. He makes you miserable. He addicts you. He brings you low and down. He makes it so that you cannot even look up. Why would you choose that shepherd? You're always anxious. You can't lie down. You don't have good food. You don't have good water. You never feel filled. You never feel content. Why would you follow that shepherd? All he cares about is destroying you. We have a good shepherd. No God like our God. We have a good shepherd. It's so beautiful. It's so great. Who's the good shepherd's flock? It's those who hear his voice. That's the idea. Look at this in verse 3. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Oh, you didn't know sheep are given names. You didn't know that the shepherd, when he walked in, could point out one sheep just by the way he did his yip. Say, hey, you. God knows each of us individually. This isn't just a collective. He knows your needs. Every lamb has a different need. Every lamb. Some have more of a tendency to kind of wander. Some have more of a tendency to get sick. Some have a tendency to not know what the good pasture is, and he has to direct them. Oh, he knows you. He knows me. He knows where each of those things are, and he's watching, he's looking, he's trying to help. Good sheep hear his voice. He calls them by name. He leads them out. Here's the value of following. The end of the text hits all of these points. They're very quick, they're very simple, but very profound. First and foremost, verse 9, those who enter will go in and out. Interesting little phrase. Those who enter will go in and out and find pasture. You say, what's the in and out? Oh. When you have a good shepherd, you have freedom. You have freedom. And he is watching and guiding, and he brings you to good pasture. And he knows every single thing you're doing. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a positive thing. Because you can go in and out. And the Lord is always directing and guiding. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Why? Because He nudges me back. He hits me over here. Hey, don't do that. I don't mean to use the word hit. It's a bump. He keeps me because I hear His voice. It's a beautiful thought. In verse 10, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Oh. Without the shepherd, its existence is not life. Without the shepherd, you don't really have life. Not just eternally, now. If you feel that slip, if you feel that hesitation and that doubt, you need to turn where there's only real life. It's wonderful. But you have to hear His voice. You have to pursue it and hear His voice. 13 and 14. Jesus cares about the flock because He knows His own. And His own know Him. There is a deep relationship there. He knows His own. He knows and they know Him. Beautiful. Sheep and a shepherd are very, very unusual in their relationship. I raised pigs, whom I loved very much, and I raised cattle, whom I didn't love as much, except the second time. I liked that part of it. But cows are a pain in the neck. They don't come when you say come, and they do whatever they want. And they'll challenge you, and they'll pretend that they're going to butt you and knock you down. I never forget that Angus I had, and he started running straight at me, and I took my fist and hit him right between the eyes. Pow! And he went, yeek, yeek. That's the last time he did that. Don't mess. I never thought I could stop a 700-pound animal from running over me. Sheep have a relationship, deep, deep friendship. A shepherd is always touching, looking, caring, watching, feeding, and making the sheep so comfortable they can lie down, because if they can't lie down, they'll die. That's what the Lord does for us. He helps you in your life lie down. In verse 15, Jesus says He lays His life down for His sheep. Please just consider what an amazing thing that is. Eli has pointed that out in his speech this morning, was so good. He who did not spare His own Son, but gave Him up for us all, how will He not also with Him graciously give us all things? What a great statement Paul made that feeds right off of this. If He did that, how would He not do everything that we need? Why would you go to another shepherd? Why would you leave this shepherd? Why would you give up on this? And yet Christians do every year. And then verse 17, he says, I lay down my life that I may take it up again. Don't just read that simply as I lay down my life so I can have a resurrection. Life to Jesus is far more than existence. Life to Jesus is far more than a resurrection. That I may take it up again is I may take up real life, and bring greater life to the world. He lays His life down. I can't have that kind of love. That's an amazing love. He lays it down so He can take all of us up again and give life to the world. And the reaction in verse 20 is absolutely amazing. Many of them said, He has a demon and is insane. Why listen to Him? As rightly pointed out, others who said, these are not the words of one who oppressed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? You know, here's insanity. Insanity is living without a good shepherd. That's insanity. I will never do that again. I hope you can make that same promise. I'm sure you can. We're going to sing a song. Can we help you in some way? We'd love to. If you need the Lord, you need to grow closer, please let us help you. As together we stand while we sing.